Hi, everyone. I'm really delighted to be here. I'm really happy to hold this presentation on Pluto in Aquarius. I'm actually very happy to be a guest on Nadiya's channel. It is truly an honor, and I really hope that you will like my presentation on Pluto in Aquarius. By the way, my name is AstroViktor. I'm from Hungary. I've been doing astrology for over 2 decades now. I prefer traditional astrology, but I put a modern twist on it, but I still use traditional rulers though. I have Pisces rising sign, Aquarius sun, Sagittarius stellium, including the moon there. So you can imagine I love traveling. I love connecting with international people, foreign cultures. Most importantly, I love teaching. Actually, I teach 3 times a week. Currently, I'm running 3 horary groups, 1 medical course, and I also have got membership offers on my website. I hold different type of lectures on different topics. I often ask my students what they would like to learn about, and I put something together. So, for example, this weekend, I will be teaching about Saturn as the Lord of Karma, and I will be breaking down in 4 segments what is our karmic mirror, what we might have done in the past, and also what is the task of Saturn, what we need to be learning with it, and so forth. So, but one of my favorite branches of astrology is connected to money and vocation, because we tend to be spending at least 40–50% of our lives at work. So I am a true believer that we would need to make the most of it. And then when we know what we are aligned with, what type of job to do, then we can get happier. And also, I love relocation astrology as well, just because I tend to be traveling every 4 to 5 months. I relocate somewhere else. And I tend to be following my astrocartography. I would be able to tell you stories if I didn't follow the pretty much the map, how it unfolds. By the way, I do use at least 5 techniques to determine the best possible place. So I look at your midpoint plans, treasure maps, obviously your astrocartography lines, but I look at your solar arc lines, your progression lines, your transit lines, if it's actually safe to travel there, or you have got some hard energies going on at the moment, and I would be postponing that travel. So for me, it's a little bit more of a complex story. I tend to be looking at geodetic planets and the local space as well. So I am really thorough when it comes to relocation, because I think it can really shift things around significantly. Now, if you are curious about my work, you might want to be popping onto my social media channels. You can find me on YouTube as AstroViktor. My website is astrovictor.com. I have made plenty of videos actually about 2024, covering Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto trine Uranus, where does your luck come from in 2024, about the Saturn-Jupiter square as well, which I think is going to be a big topic. Recently, I made a video about the Sun-Pluto conjunction on 0 degree of Aquarius, and I did mention there that most likely a king or a queen or a leader who is going to resign. Probably you heard about the queen who abdicated herself recently, I think from the 14th of January, the Queen of Denmark. But anyway, this was the self-promotion part. Let's get started with Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. Obviously, this is going to be a very significant change in humanity. We already had a bit of taste, right? Once Pluto went into the sign of Aquarius in 2020, 23rd of March. It was there until 11th of June. And then Pluto decided to go back into the sign of Capricorn. And then, of course, now we are going to be having this shift again on 20th of January. But again, this is not the final move. It's only going to be lasting till 1st of September. And then we're going to have again a bit of period in the sign of Aquarius. And finally, in November, the second part of November, Pluto moves into the sign of Aquarius and remains there till about 2044. So, of course, Pluto will be spending here approximately about 20 years. Now, Pluto takes approximately about 248 years to come to a full circle. So this is a slow-moving planet. Pluto is a bit funny. Pluto tends to be spending, for example, at least 32 years in the sign of Taurus and only approximately about 11, 12 years in the sign of Scorpio. So Pluto in Aquarius is something to do with the mid-range time, pretty much. Now, what's worth mentioning, because this is something we can really talk about for a very long time. First of all, Aquarius. How I usually approach a mundane event is that I tend to be looking at what was going on in the previous cycles. So, for example, Pluto was in the sign of Aquarius between 1287 till 1307. And that was the time when basically the first parliaments, or at least the representation of people, appeared in the parliaments. And this was very much connected to taxation, by the way, and Pluto is talking to us about tax. So this will be very interesting to see how the parliament, how the changes are going to be appearing in the social structure. But also this could indicate to me that the voting system will be changing significantly as well. And we had Pluto in the sign of Aquarius again between 1532 to 1552. And that was very much about major discoveries. For example, in the solar system, Copernicus actually came up with his work and then it got published as well. And then 1778 till 1797, well, Uranus got discovered. Then we have got the American Revolution, US became independent, we had the French Revolution, and also there was this women's rights movement as well. So overall, you can see the themes of what Pluto in the sign of Aquarius might bring for us. One of the things I would like to mention that Aquarius, of course, it is a air sign. And the air is always connected to movements, ideology, ideas, languages, but also curiosity and humanitarian matters. Now, Aquarius is the detrimental position of the sun. So Pluto will be opposing, of course, Leo here. So for me, what it really tells us is that most likely the leadership style will change. The parliament work will change. Maybe, Aquarius would talk to us about democracy. Aquarius, Pluto would talk to us about that the power is given back to people somehow. So I can imagine that eventually the parliament is going to be disappearing. Or maybe the leadership at the head of the organizations will be changing significantly, or maybe we're going to work through something to do with the working rights as well of people. Now, of course, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. And we've started the current Pluto-Saturn cycle in 2020 at the beginning of the year, somewhere in January, and it happened on 21, 22 degree of Capricorn. So it's going to be very important to watch the Saturn-Pluto cycle, how it's unfolding. One thing I would like to mention, it's going to become visible what to expect in the next 20 years because Pluto and Saturn will be in semi-square. As soon as we've got the Saturn-Jupiter square happening on 14 degree of Pisces to 14 degree of Gemini, Pluto will be still on 0 degree of Aquarius, which is a 45-degree angle. So we're going to have a semi-square. Semi-squares basically are connected to some element of crisis situation. So crisis situation when it comes to democracy, for example. But let me talk about this Saturn and Jupiter square very briefly, because this would talk about how much you dare to dream. What did you start in 2020? Did you want to, for example, accomplish something on a personal level because this Pluto is wanting you to change that, or actually to empower yourself to go for it? This could be one of the meaning of that. Of course, we can look at it from a world point of view as well. And we do know that unfortunately that was a pandemic. And it's very possible that maybe some airborne pandemic is going to be coming in the next few years. I would say especially this could be true when the nodes are going to be in the sign of Virgo and Pisces, which is going to be happening sometimes in 2026. Most likely, we're going to have another pandemic. Maybe this is a little bit of a bad news here, though. Now, also very interesting, and I made a video about this separately as well on my YouTube channel if you want to be checking that out. But the current Saturn-Pluto cycle started on 21-22 degree of Capricorn. This is exactly where Ceres will start its retrograde motion. Ceres will be in the sign of Capricorn from 7th of February for 10 months. And Ceres is about agriculture. Most likely food distribution is going to be an issue in 2024, probably 2025 as well, or the cost of living, or the price increases, or something to do with anything agricultural matters, such as making bread, the crops, maybe some weather conditions are going to get intensified and unfortunately ruining, for example, corns and all those type of things, which is making it impossible to keep up with some of the flows. Think back what was going on in 2020. The shelves were empty because people were panic buying. So actually this could talk to us about, again, some type of stocking up as well. Now, Saturn square Pluto, that's going to be a major cycle, 2028, 2029. And then especially the Saturn-Pluto opposition in 2036. But I'm not going to talk about those because, of course, that would be a major long topic. So let's just forget about that for a second. Now, what's very interesting to me is that on the 21st of January, 20th of January, Pluto and the Sun will be meeting on 29 degree of Capricorn. And hand in hand, they're going to walk into the sign of Aquarius. And they are having two conjunctions basically within 12 hours. Now, this has not happened since 1796. It happens on 0 degree of Aquarius. And this is the degree where we had the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, also in 2020 December. And this is where the Saturn-Mars conjunction took place in 2020 March as well. So for me, this was talking to us about possibly leadership will be changing. Someone is resigning. Someone is going to get exposed. Of course, the 29 degree would indicate the end of something, and Aquarius would indicate the beginning of something new. And this time around, while Pluto is on 0 degrees, Saturn and Jupiter will be squaring each other, as I mentioned. So somehow this is telling me that 2020 is coming back. In 2024, we're gonna somehow relive these moments. But surely, because we have got so much Aquarian element getting triggered here, is it the start of the Aquarius era? You know, and I will leave that with you to decide. But of course, the Aquarius cusp in your chart has had loads of attentions in the last 4 years. And then when you start, and you know, we actually have loads of sensitive points in the sign of Capricorn because the major planetary cycles started there, such as the Saturn-Pluto conjunction on 22 degree, the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction 24 degree of Capricorn. And there are other cycles as well that started in the sign of Capricorn. For example, 18 degree of Capricorn between Neptune and Uranus conjunction. So what is happening really in the society is that we want to change anything to do with the government. We want to be liberating ourselves from any of the limitations what is laid ahead of us. And Pluto in Aquarius will help us to do that. And that's really exciting. Of course, Aquarius is about liberation, freedom. Aquarius is the day sign of Saturn. Saturn is a lot stronger actually in the sign of Aquarius than in Capricorn, because Capricorn would be more to do with a feminine energy, and Aquarius is a male energy, and Saturn is also a male figure. But for me, Surely this Pluto in the sign of Aquarius is about becoming independent again. I'm just thinking about the American and the French Revolution, of course, and, just being led by the government. And are we being led in the right direction? This could be a major question. Aquarius is an air sign. Air is connected with intellect, the mind, the nervous system, learning, curiosity. And remember that Saturn is the host of Pluto this time around, at least by traditional astrology, because modern astrology would say that it is Uranus, right? So therefore, it's kind of like Pluto is reporting to Saturn in a way, or at least it's looking at guidance. Now, in that moment when Pluto moves into the sign of Aquarius, Saturn will be in Pisces, which is very much connected to the immune system. But on top of that, it is also connected to mental activities, hospitalizations, pandemics, and the health industry overall. So for me, this would talk to us about major technological advancements in medical fields. I am very certain that such things as diabetes, for example, or cancer will be cured in the next couple of years. This is one of the predictions I would like to make here. But also this could indicate how much the healthcare system is going to change. For example, such as I think we're going to have to forget about anything to do with benefits, for example. We might need to be forgetting about pension as well. And this is going to be more to do with relying on what you have now. I mean, pension, most likely, I would say it's not a shock because this is something people have been talking about for a very long time. I would also say that, as I mentioned, Aquarius is the detrimental position of the sun. And we will have the Sun and Pluto conjunction on 0 degree of Aquarius, marking basically a new era in a way. It would tell me that most likely anything to do with religious movements are going to be a huge topic. I can imagine that people will not want to follow certain type of religions, and therefore they become rebellious about it, such as, for example, they would like to take off their hijab and all this type of stuff. And of course, it's going to get restricted by the government because it's a Saturnian sign at the end of the day. Aquarius could rule over politics as well. So there is an element of political decisions that people are not liking, and we want to be going against it. Often Aquarius is believed to be a water sign. Of course, it comes from the fact that it starts with aqua, that means water. But actually, it's an air sign. But the emotions are extremely important here. Often Aquarius feel that they are not allowed to express their emotions because they're going to get judged for it. They're going to get rejected for their feelings. They're going to get outcasted. So that's why I also believe that with Pluto, which is the planet of sexuality, and Aquarius being rejected and outcasted, I think the transgender movement is going to become big. And most likely, even I can imagine, the language is going to be changing as well because words are going to be disappearing from the dictionary. Air signs are connected to reading, listening, and words. Talking about words, most likely I would say that the words are going to be a weapon. I mean, air signs are connected to data. So I'm just wondering if the Data Protection Act is going to stay around, whether the data is going to get used against us. I can imagine situations, unfortunately, where certain conversations are going to be recorded, for example, and it's going to be used against us. Or, I mean, guys, this is happening now as well. How often do you see that you talk about something on your phone and then all of a sudden it pops up as an advertisement? I'm not here to create conspiracy theories, but this is not only me who noticed that, right? So obviously we're talking about these smartphones. And by the way, the technology is going to be so advanced, you cannot even imagine. What I'm actually expecting is that the computers will be able to generate programs on their own according to your needs or to your search data and so forth. And it's kind of like being connected to a big server where we're going to get monitored. This is the type of things I'm actually imagining with this one. So, of course, Pluto, which is about a major change. Now, how do we feel about that change with Pluto in Aquarius? That's going to be the major question. Do you feel that somehow you get outcasted? Because often how Aquarius operates is that everyone is equal, but I'm a little bit more equal than others. So am I being left out of that group of people? And then I become rebellious against that change because I cannot accept it. It's kind of like it fits the majority, but it doesn't fit certain segments. So people are going to start standing up against those changes because I also want to fit in somewhere. I would also say that because the dispositor of Pluto, Saturn, is in the sign of Pisces, this is the last sign of the zodiacs. And therefore, it could represent endings. Something is going to be ending in the next 2 years. Maybe this is about monarchy, maybe the rulership, maybe a fall of an empire, maybe actually a union is going to be ending. Talking about unions, I think the European Union will start falling apart. And I think in the next 2 to 3 years, most likely one more country, at least one more country is going to be leaving the EU, or one of the countries is going to get chucked out. Now, talking about Aquarius, which is very much connected to diversity and, as I said, equality in a way. So let's see, these diversity policies as well, the Diversity Act, how that might be playing out. But as I mentioned before, I do not think that people are going to get benefits, for example, or any type of support anymore, because maybe the governments are going to say that we cannot afford it. But also Pluto is wealth and Aquarius is internet. So money made from the internet could be a major topic. Of course, this is not going to be new, but most likely more and more people will be working online. This is how I would imagine. Now, of course, Pluto talks to us about taxation. So most likely every single country is going to introduce something to do with tax made on the internet. Maybe it's going to be something like an immediate online cashier check or something like that. This is how I would imagine that. I know a couple of countries in the last 10 years, actually, it's been introduced. So as soon as, let's say, you go to a shop, you pay, the shop pays their taxes immediately. It gets transferred to the government in that second as soon as someone spends their money there. This might get popularized, actually. First of all, Pluto in the sign of Capricorn might look like a little bit similar because obviously Capricorn and Aquarius are ruled by Saturn. But Capricorn is the female expression. So the female energy is connected to Moon, and Moon is something to do with our feelings and families. So whatever changes Pluto made in the government, let's say in the government or in the sign of Capricorn, it affected family, the real estate industry, for example, but also just one country in a way, and your emotional response to it. But now it's going to be more to do with the sun, which is about vitality, longevity of your life, entrepreneurship. Let me make a couple of predictions here. I think they're going to find ways of increasing the length of your life. Maybe these are technological advancements, but also sun is connected to vanity. So most likely we will see technology that is going to make you look like 20, 30 years younger. These already exist, but triple the impact of those. I think entrepreneurship will be changing, especially anything to do with the digital nomad visas. Either they are going to get cancelled or more and more people will introduce that. And they're going to be trying to attract people somehow with tax. I do believe that actually the tax, like these tax paradises, will disappear. There's going to be debate about not being fair of having these tax paradises on certain countries. Of course, if you look at some European countries where the tax is approximately about 50%, and then you go to Dubai where it's a tax paradise, obviously people want to open a business in Dubai. Now, I do know actually there has been talk about the taxation in Dubai as well, and some of the governments are forcing Dubai to actually put taxation on people. So now they are planning something like 9%, as far as I heard about it. So therefore, it could really talk to us about the change of self-employment. Most likely Pluto, which is also about hidden money as well. You know, that one of the reasons why they're going to introduce anything to do with the electronic cash, so no more notes, because this is one of the ways how they are trying to avoid people cheating taxes. And unfortunately, this is for me coming. As I said, the change of digital nomad life, maybe actually the change of borders as well. I mean, at the end of the day, an air sign is very much about movements, but this is a Saturnian sign, so the restriction of movements on one hand. So are you allowed to travel? Are you allowed to relocate? What are the circumstances for you to relocate? It's kind of like it happens, I think, in Australia. You've got a bit of a checklist and you have to meet certain criteria. You have to have a kind of like a certain amount of points to be able to get visas somewhere else. I can imagine this one to be more popular somehow. But also maybe the change of borders is just something to do with the virtual borders, really. But I can imagine basically that cities are kind of not going to be gap between villages, but they're going to come together. So villages are going to get bigger in a way, and just kind of like helping transportation with that. And of course, we are overpopulated. So some of those small villages are going to get, you know, together. There is going to be, let's say, one member of the parliament there or one local representative. So again, this is kind of like a governmental change, what I'm pretty much imagining here. Of course, an air sign is so much to do with intellect. So the way we study, I don't think there is going to be schools in 20 years' time. Everything is going to be happening online. And I do believe that education needs to be changing anyway. I don't think it has been working for a while. This is something I had spoken about with someone, that we are in such a data-driven world, and we are giving percentages to kids at the moment that, oh, your exam is 92% and so forth. We are making kids to choose their career path at the age of what, 14 in certain countries. Are they actually able to choose what they want to be doing in the rest of their lives? Of course not. So I think the education system must change, and I think Pluto will approve of that. Of course, air signs are connected to reading, listening, speaking abilities. Let's see how the literacy is going to be happening in the next 20 years. But of course, we are going to be more reliant on technology. I can imagine that some people will not be able to write anymore because they're just going to be dictating, such as getting a dictator telling, you know, what to write, and then it's all going to be sent to someone else. Most likely, we will see that as well. Now, of course, Aquarius, which is about downloading information and the human brain, I think there is going to be extreme amount of research about how the human brain works. We only use 5% of our brain, right? Approximately. Now, 95% of it is pretty much of an unknown territory for many of us. So this definitely is going to become a major research topics. You know, hopefully one of the very negative interpretations of Pluto in Aquarius that they gonna try to put some type of chips in the human body to be able to get monitored. And you know, I know what you guys are gonna say now. I have gone mad, but you know, I cannot forget all those films that came around 40 years ago and they came to life. Just think about Knight Rider, a speaking car, a self-driving car. What, that series, what, it was 40 years ago, right? And then it's happening now. We're gonna have flying cars, self-driven cars. I also can imagine, by the way, that the cars are going to be disappearing from the roads, and there is going to be maybe more of a public transport. Maybe the taxation of these transportations are going to be so huge that people will choose traveling, for example, in the air. Maybe there is not enough space. Maybe we're going to do that just to preserve the earth, to save the earth. In a way, obviously, the carbon monoxide, dioxide, and so forth. So something to do with pollution. And pollution, the air pollution, obviously connects to the air signs as well. Of course, what else comes to my mind is that because Aquarius, a detrimental ruler is the sun. So therefore, anything to do with luxury. So are we going to be able to afford luxurious items? Sun could represent anything to do with holidays, these hotel industries. You know, I'm just wondering if there is going to be a 7, 8-star hotel instead of 5-star hotels. So, but also this could talk to us about the exposure of the riches, though. Where do they get their money from? I kind of believe that the middle class people are going to disappear. So there is going to be more to do with two layers, the riches and the poor, in a way. And this doesn't also sound that promising, in my opinion. I mean, remember some of the themes of Pluto. Pluto, on one hand, is about psychology. So this could actually show the rise of psychology, the rise of spirituality. Maybe people are going to go back to programming themselves, like the brain control as a technique might be rising significantly. But also, it might be the fact that we want to be somehow brainwashed. We're going to have, or are we going to allow others to brainwash us? And this is happening also. We allow the social media to brainwash us. And again, I know that many people will say, no, I do not allow being brainwashed, but it's inevitable. I mean, you know, I go on social media and then I see a guy who has got, I don't know, 1.5 million followers. And then he says, do not eat broccoli because this is unhealthy. Do not eat garlic because this is unhealthy. Do not eat basically anything, he says. He's got 1.5 million followers. And he's just one person out of all these fear-mongering people, in a way. And then we end up not eating anything. We cannot even breathe air very soon because that's what social media says, just for a second of fame. And just think about Aquarius as the detrimental ruler of, I mean, Sun being the detrimental ruler of Aquarius. We're talking about these spiritually claimed people who have got their certain ideas and then forcing us to swallow something, forcing us to follow their opinion or to accept their opinion. But also, Pluto definitely will bring here technological advancements. Maybe it's more to do with being able to understand the animal languages or how the brain waves function. But also I can imagine being able to access more information in the brain, such as hypnotherapy might be growing to a next level, but also I can imagine that a new planet is going to get discovered. I mean, the last time we had Uranus discovered, so this would not be a small planet. This would not be a small asteroid, for example. This would be something that is going to be changing astrology. And it might be making you question whether astrology work if something else is going to get discovered. But remember, we tend to say that things are getting discovered when humanity is ready for a change. So something will be coming, something will get discovered in the sky. Anything to do with the sky is going to be tremendously important. So aviation, space travels, air industries overall is going to be huge. And these are something we will be able to make money from because Pluto is also connected with wealth. I think one of the very important things is that while Pluto was in the sign of Capricorn, we might have been a little bit more attached to the past, to traditions. But in the sign of Aquarius, Pluto will be telling us that we need to move away from traditions. Those people who get stuck in the past might get hurt significantly. So it's a time to renew our own life in certain ways. Also, I mentioned that information is going to become power. What information do you have against someone? What records? What type of talks you've got? And so forth. I can imagine the photographic memory somehow to be a bigger tool, for example. But also, I would say that, I spoke about the data protection. I spoke about, being listened to in a way. Again, what came to my mind is, has anyone watched the Charmed series? And I think it was in the 8th series where they had all this utopia going on. It was, for me, really Pluto in Aquarius and Saturn in Pisces era. So this utopia, and then there were, I don't know, some people around the big round table deciding whether this person needs to be eliminated or not. I'm not saying that this is going to be the case, though. So I'm not crazy. I'm not fully crazy, but this is kind of like a thread, how I imagine Pluto in Aquarius and Saturn in Pisces. So surely the misuse of data is going to be a significant topic in the next 20 years. At the end of the day, Saturn is a restrictive planet, and there's a dispositor of Pluto. So let's see how the internet is going to be changing, whether internet is going to be available for everyone. And of course, it will be available, but I can imagine that certain sites will not be available for everyone. So maybe these subscription plans will be a lot bigger just to be able to make money, or anything to do with, the storage of websites. Most likely the websites are going to be a lot more interactive, a lot more mind triggering as well, a lot more manipulative, kind of like prompting you to purchase something, to spend money. Also, I would say, I mentioned about the changes, the fairness. I can imagine, Aquarius rules over politics as well. So let's see, I just was wondering that the women rights came up as a topic, obviously, in the last Pluto in Uranus era. So let's see whether, they are going to try to take away the rights of certain people. I'm not saying this is going to be about women, though, but certain minority groups, that they have no rights for this and that. There is going to be a trine to Uranus as well, which would be the modern dispositor of Aquarius. So most likely electricity will be changing. Most likely it will be replaced with something more modern. Also, I would say, with Pluto and the money, so everything, maybe it's going to be more to do with working from home rather than having offices. And this might be connected some cost saving matters. Why the cost? Aquarius is a fixed sign. And the fixed signs are pretty much connected to money. Also, maybe it's going to be connected with wind technology as well. As I said, migration is going to be most likely a very significant topic, and I think migration is going to get stopped. These visa matters are going to get a lot harder because we will not see as fair that, I don't know, Turkey, for example, takes on, I don't know, 75% of the refugees, which is actually not necessarily a rich country. So something to do with fairness as well. But surely how we travel, how we move around will be changing. I mean, when we look at, the past and certain type of discoveries, of course, with Pluto being in the sign of Aquarius, Uranus being in the sign of Gemini, approximately 250 years ago, we had major technological advancements. So this is going to be definitely the number one topic there. But I mentioned that probably certain type of communities will be falling apart, whether it's the NATO or EU. I would need to check their charts separately, but I would believe EU is going to be one of them as well. Remember, Pluto also talks to you about obsession too. So we can easily get obsessed with politics. We might get involved with political matters or technological advancements. Remember, it's a lot easier for the younger generation because they have pretty much grown up in these technological matters. But for example, me, who is 41 years old, or those people who are actually older than me, we might not be that inclined for all these new things. That's how I see it. Now, of course, Aquarius, which is a fixed air sign, so therefore it talks about the frame of the mind, the structure of the mind. This is about ideology. But Saturn is the reminder, as the ruler of Aquarius, that we must stay real with all the changes we are making, or there will be consequences of it. So how do we think about reality? How do we think about society? How does a society, or how should a society function? How should the world, or how to make the world a better place? These could be very significant questions that are going to be coming up for us. What does it mean to be human? Also, this might be changing our perception or reality about what reality is. I mean, Saturn being in the sign of Pisces, this is also telling me that virtual reality is going to be blooming in the next 20 years. Because Pisces is about imagination, Saturn is about crystallization. So the crystallization of our dreams, something we imagine in our head, we are able to manifest that. That would be one of the positive meanings of Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Saturn is a reminder that looking at things from an extreme point of view, we shouldn't be doing that. Pluto is often looked at, as a devil. It's the planet of death and rebirth. But I would like to mention that everything has got their positive and negative sides as well. Saturn is the reminder that do not look at it from an extreme point of view. Pluto wants us to strip our ego away, put our ego aside. It's not just about our needs now. In the sign of Aquarius, we're talking about collective needs. What is good for Earth? How to, prevent from earthing in a way, how to prevent Earth from crashing. So I feel like the environmental pollution and these type of things will be a major topic in the next 20 years. Pluto wants to purify things as well. So it wants to purify us from in a way, the riches. But rich people are always going to be around. So one of the questions in the sign of Aquarius, whether you feel powerful or are you still resenting having rich people or leaders and so forth, can you become the leader of your own life? Pluto always wants us to look within, and Pluto is the ultimate healer. So if you want a better life, Pluto is the reminder to start that within. Work through your fears, because those fears, when you have faced them, they are not fears anymore. Actually, they become your own, our strength. So that's why Pluto is the death and rebirth. It's nothing necessarily to do with dying in a physical way. It's just about closing one door, never looking backwards, and then moving forward to a better future, especially in the sign of Aquarius. Open that new door for yourself. Now, anyway, I'm not here to talk to you about in depth the meaning of Pluto, but I feel like these themes are important to mention to have a better feel about what Pluto might mean in the sign of Aquarius. We could even be looking at the history while it was in the sign of Sagittarius, where we, for example, saw loads of terror attacks. I'm not going to do that because I think altogether I made at least about 15-hour video about 2024, and a good 5-6 hours is connected to Pluto. So I'm just trying to summarize basically the information I put together in the last 1 year about Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. Pluto is the planet of strength. We need inner strength if we want to do better. So to summarize on that, I think while Pluto was in the sign of Capricorn, it already showed us what to expect in the sign of Aquarius. So we saw loads of technological advancements. There will be talks about how the society should operate. Genderism will be a major topic, somehow to bring East and West a little bit closer. Capricorn is about conservative values. In Aquarius, we need to renew those views. That's the reason why I mentioned, for example, some of the religious belief systems that probably will disappear somehow. The transformation of education, languages, and travel industry will be significant. Also, one of the ways how you can look at it is what was going on while Saturn and Jupiter had the conjunction of 0 degree of Aquarius in 2020 December as well. So I'm not going to talk about that now, but for me, this is about not being able to recognize the world in the next 20 years. Anything to do with internet, mobile, sales, business transactions will be completely different. You know what? That the air cycle started in the 1980s. That's when we had the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction the first time in air sign for a very long time. But then after it shifted back into the sign of into the earth signs for another 40 years. That's when internet came around. That's when HIV came around. That's when the first computers kind of got popularized and so forth. So we've already seen that internet is going to be changing very significantly. And, one of the things I'm seeing with, for example, Saturn in the sign of Pisces, it's kind of like wanting to live on a remote island. But then Jupiter will be in the sign of Gemini, obviously squaring Saturn, while Pluto and Saturn are in a semi-square. So Jupiter in Gemini is very much about, as I said, bringing the cities and the towns closer. So for me, this is about also border change as well. Will the borders exist? What is the border of your mind? How far can you stretch your mind? How much can you believe in your own power? How far can you go if you have changed the perception you have over success? Because Saturn and Jupiter cycles are connected to business cycles, by the way. I'm going to give you an example here. I attended a healing session one day where we downloaded my existing knowledge onto an imaginary pen drive that got handed over to my future mom. The reason why I did that because I all of a sudden had this fear of flying. And I wanted to know where this originates from. And one of the ways basically how it popped up was that I'm afraid that my knowledge is not going to be heard by others, and I'm going to be falling into oblivion. And Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, Aquarius is about oblivion, being forgotten, being rejected. Your knowledge is not being accepted. You have got a special, unique talent that is, the world is not ready for it. So that's the reason why the remedy for this, on this healing session, was to download that information onto a pink pen drive, and that got handed over to a future mom. And she's gonna give it back to me so that my knowledge stays with me. I mean, it was interesting. And let me tell you, since then, no fear on airplanes. I mean, it's mind-blowing to me. And I think these type of techniques will be more and more popular and most likely accepted. If the schools are staying around, then I can imagine that astronomy or astrology or psychology will be taught in classes. And I think that would be great anyway. You know, Aquarius is about intuitive hits. It's about the information that you are able to download. So it's very much about tapping into a collective energy. I would say that astrology will be available for more people. You know, another topic which might be popping up is the tracking system of your business transactions. You know, let's see how that plays out. It might get more popularized. Obviously, we're going to have a Jupiter-Pluto trine happening as well. And with Jupiter, we tend to be spreading things. But the other thing which came to my mind, Jupiter, for example, the representation of children. So I think the IVF, giving birth, is going to be changing significantly. Remember that the Leo Aquarius axis could talk about kids as well. So something major around the kids. So one hand, this could talk to us about education, but Aquarius rules anything to do with fake foods, fake products. So I don't want to say, but is cloning going to be coming around, or are we going to have the choice to choose how we want our children to look like? Or are we going to be able to determine whether the child is going to be healthy or not? Or maybe they are going to be somehow coming up with some technology that is going to be allowing people to give birth at a later age as well. You know, I mean, often with Pluto, we are trying to control something that is uncontrollable, actually. And that's one of the major problems with Pluto. And basically what I'm trying to say here is that the Pluto-Jupiter trine, for example, indicate that something will spread, and it's going to be very difficult to stop it. Most likely this is going to be impossible to stop it, I would say. The changes are coming, and some of these changes need to be embraced. I mean, guys, I think we have been talking about Pluto in Aquarius, mixing that a little bit with Saturn in Pisces, as well as Jupiter and Uranus in the sign of Gemini. I would be able to talk about this a lot more seriously. It's a vast topic, but I really hope you have enjoyed this talk. Hopefully you don't look at me like I'm a crazy guy. And I hope that you would like to see me again on this channel holding a presentation about something else. And then if you wish to check out my work, you can do that on AstroViktor.com. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I hope to see you again, for example, maybe a Jupiter and Uranus conjunction video in the sign of Taurus. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.